The crew of the guided missile destroyer USS Carney, operating in the northern Red Sea earlier today, shot down 3 land attack cruise missiles.
A fierce information war is unfolding alongside military escalation after Iran
March 17th, 2026, 4:13 a.m. local time, central Persian Gulf, 51 nautical miles northwest of Abu Musa Island. The pre-dawn darkness sits completely undisturbed over the water. No wind. Surface temperature 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility unlimited. 4 miles north of the main shipping corridor, the USS Carl Vinson maintains a slow 8-knot transit. Her navigation lights the only break in the blackness between the water and the stars, and inside a hardened tunnel cut into a hillside 12 miles northeast of Shiraz, a launch crew that has been awake for 31 hours is conducting its final arming sequence on a weapon that Iran has spent 4 years and approximately $2 billion developing, refining, and hiding from every satellite that has ever passed over that hillside. The tunnel mouth opens at 4:11. 2 minutes earlier, a second crew 1,100 meters to the east has already completed their own sequence. Their missile is different, smaller, older, cheaper. It exists entirely to die, and the Iranian planners who designed this operation understand that distinction more precisely than any briefing document they have ever produced. The expensive missile and the disposable missile, the sword and the shield, one of them will be destroyed in the next 9 minutes. The other one is supposed to reach the USS Carl Vinson. The first missile out of the tunnel is a Al-Qadr 110, an Iranian medium-range ballistic missile, domestically produced variant of the Shahab-3, with a range of approximately 1,800 kilometers. It carries a conventional unitary warhead weighing 750 kilograms. It cost the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps roughly $2.8 million to produce. It climbs at 4:12 and 30 seconds, punching through 40,000 feet in under 85 seconds. Its infrared signature visible to American overhead sensors within 11 seconds of launch. The track gets picked up. The track gets classified. The track gets a number. If you want to understand exactly what happened in those 9 minutes in the Persian Gulf and why it changes everything about how Iran calculates its next move, hit like right now so this video reaches the people who need to see it. The USS Lake Erie, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser operating 6 nautical miles northeast of the Carl Vinson, has her SPY-1B radar painting the Al-Qadr 110 through its entire boost phase. The Combat Information Center classifies the track in under 9 seconds. On ballistic missile, medium range assessed Iranian origin, trajectory plotting toward the carrier strike group. The recommendation is automatic. Shoot it. A standard missile, 3 Block 2A, leaves the Lake Erie's forward vertical launch system 24 seconds after initial detection. $28 million chasing a $2.8 million target through the exoatmosphere above the Persian Gulf. The SM-3 intercepts the Al-Qadr 110 at 44 miles altitude, 0414 and 22 seconds. Clean kill. Debris field calculated to descend into open water 8 miles from the nearest shipping traffic. The engagement is logged, confirmed, archived. The system performed exactly as designed. What the Lake Erie's Combat Information Center did not know was that the Al-Qadr 110 was never supposed to survive. It was launched to die. It was launched to make the SM-3 shoot. It was launched to empty one of the Lake Erie's most valuable defensive cells and to occupy her fire control radar for the 22 seconds that radar would be locked onto the kill. Because 1,100 meters to the east of the Al-Qadr 110's launch point at 4:13 and 10 seconds, the second missile is already off its rail. The Al-Qadr, Iran's most advanced publicly acknowledged ballistic missile, first displayed in 2024, medium-range, solid-fueled, with a maneuvering re-entry vehicle that Iran's state media described carefully and accurately as capable of defeating all known theater missile defense systems. The warhead it carries is a unitary kinetic penetrator, not an explosive charge. A dense slug of hardened metal designed to carry its own velocity through a flight deck and not stop until it reaches the water below. It weighs 650 kilograms. Its terminal velocity exceeds 5,600 meters per second. Its maneuvering re-entry vehicle can pull lateral G-loads of up to 16 during the final descent phase. The engineers who built it spent 3 years studying American missile defense test data and specifically optimized the maneuver profile to defeat SM-6 guidance algorithms at intercept ranges below 30 miles. Comment Al-Qadr if you think Iran just launched the most technically sophisticated attack in Persian Gulf history. The Al-Qadr climbs to a peak altitude of 97 miles, well into the exoatmosphere, on a trajectory that will bring it down toward the Carl Vinson's position in exactly 9 minutes and 14 seconds from launch. At 4:13 and 55 seconds, the USS Wayne E. Meyer, you're a Flight 2A Arleigh Burke-class destroyer positioned 380 meters northwest of the Carl Vinson, picks up the Al-Qadr's boost phase signature on her AN/SPY-6 radar. The SPY-6 is the newer system, more sensitive than the Lake Erie's SPY-1B by a factor of approximately 30 in terms of minimum detectable signal. It can see smaller objects at greater distances and resolve their trajectories with higher precision. The track appears on the network instantly. Every ship in the carrier strike group sees it simultaneously. Here is the immediate problem. The Lake Erie fired one SM-3 at the Al-Qadr 110 seconds ago. Her fire control radar was locked on that engagement. The SM-3 was still guiding toward its intercept point. Shifting the fire control radar to the new track means abandoning the SM-3's data link for 3 seconds while the radar reacquires. 3 seconds at the SM-3's closing speed is 40 kilometers of uncorrected trajectory. The Al-Qadr 110 intercept goes clean anyway because the Al-Qadr 110 is not maneuvering. The Lake Erie's fire control team makes the shift. They see the Al-Qadr. And what the fire control computer returns on the intercept solution makes the tactical action officer ask the system to run the calculation again. The Al-Qadr's trajectory puts the optimal SM-3 intercept window at the extreme kinematic boundary of the missile. Not impossible. The margin for error on a ballistic intercept at maximum range is measured in fractions of a second of timing error. A guidance update arriving 0.4 seconds late produces a missed distance of over 2 miles at those closing velocities. The Lake Erie's tactical action officer makes the call in under 4 seconds. SM-3 geometry is marginal. Shift to SM-6 engagement. Load firing solution, 8 minutes remain. The standard Missile 6 is a completely different type of weapon. Where the SM-3 kills targets in space using a kinetic hit-to-kill vehicle and no explosive, the SM-6 kills targets in the atmosphere using an active radar seeker and a blast fragmentation warhead. It costs approximately $4.3 million per round. Its maximum engagement range exceeds 150 nautical miles against air-breathing targets. Against a ballistic missile warhead in terminal descent, the engagement window is shorter, the geometry is harder, and the target is moving faster. But the SM-6 has one characteristic that makes it the right tool for what the Al-Qadr is about to do. Its onboard active radar seeker can chase a maneuvering target autonomously in the final seconds of intercept, independent of the launching ship's fire control beam. It does not need to be told where the target is. It looks for it. The Lake Erie fires 2 SM-6 missiles in ripple salvo at 4:15 and 17 seconds, $8.6 million airborne in under 5 seconds. Both interceptors climb on solid rocket boosters before their ramjet sustainer motors ignite, pushing them toward the Al-Qadr's projected descent corridor at velocities exceeding Mach 3.5. Type yes if you want to see whether America's most advanced interceptors were actually enough to stop what Iran built. 7 minutes remain. The Carl Vinson's air boss has the flight deck in emergency defensive posture. 2 FA-18F Super Hornets that were 90 seconds from catapult launch have been pushed back. Fuel hoses retracted, ordnance carts rolled to the island. The entire complex machinery of carrier flight operations runs itself in reverse in under 90 seconds. The deck crew, average age 21, does this drill. They know what it means when the deck clears. The Carl Vinson's own close-in defense systems spin up simultaneously. 3 Phalanx CIWS mounts transition to autonomous engagement mode. Each fires 4,500 rounds per minute of 20mm tungsten penetrators. 2 RIM-116. Rolling airframe missile launchers acquire standby status. Let the last-ditch layer of a defense that was designed with the understanding that there are some days when every previous layer fails. 6 minutes remain. The Al-Qadr's warhead is descending through 110,000 feet. Above that altitude, its flight profile looks identical to any other ballistic reentry vehicle. Predictable, trackable, solvable. The fire control systems aboard the Lake Erie and the Wayne E. Meyer are both painting it, both tracking, both feeding their data into the Carrier Strike Group's Cooperative Engagement Capability Network, a system that allows one ship's radar to guide another ship's missiles and fuse multiple radar pictures into a single high-resolution track. The combined picture is more precise than either radar alone. The Al-Qadr's engineers knew about CEC when they designed the maneuver profile. What they calculated was that even with fused radar data, A 16G terminal maneuver begun below 80,000 feet would degrade the combined track quality enough to produce SM-6 miss distances exceeding the warhead's lethal radius. Share this video right now, because what happens in the next 5 minutes decides whether Iran's $2 billion missile program was a brilliant investment or a catastrophic miscalculation. 5 minutes remain. The Al-Qadr drops through 80,000 feet. The maneuvering re-entry vehicle activates. 10 Gs right, then 14 Gs left. Then a complex pre-programmed sequence of lateral maneuvers that shifts the projected impact point by hundreds of meters with each adjustment. The combined CEC track from the Lake Erie and the Wayne E. Meyer does not degrade into the cone the Iranian engineers projected. It tightens. Now, the SPY-6 radar on the Wayne E. Meyer is resolving the warhead's physical dimensions at a level of detail that the SPY-1B on the Lake Erie cannot achieve. The data fusion is creating a track quality that is updated 12 times per second instead of the 6 times per second the Iranian engineers modeled when they calculated their maneuver effectiveness. The Al-Qadr's engineers built their system to defeat the defensive network that existed in 2023 when the maneuver algorithms were finalized. The Wayne E. Meyer's SPY-6 radar entered operational service in 2024. The gap between what Iran modeled and what it is now flying into is narrow. But narrow margins in missile defense do not always favor the attacker. 4 minutes remain. The first SM-6 is closing at a combined velocity approaching 9,800 miles per hour. Its active radar seeker picks up the Al-Qadr warhead at 11 miles and goes autonomous. The interceptor is now chasing the target independent of the ship. It receives trajectory updates from the CEC network 12 times per second. The Al-Qadr pulls a sharp 15G turn to the south. The SM-6 follows. Its guidance system is running its own prediction algorithm, projecting not where the warhead is, but where it will be based on the maneuver sequence it has observed in the previous 2 seconds. The projection is correct. The SM-6 detonates its blast fragmentation warhead 9 meters from the Al-Qadr's re-entry vehicle. 9 meters. At those closing velocities, 9 meters is the edge of the lethal radius, not the center. Tungsten fragments expand in a cone at 8,000 feet per second. Like approximately 37 fragments penetrate the warhead's outer casing. The steering fins that generate the 16G maneuvers are partially destroyed. The guidance electronics inside the re-entry vehicle take fragment hits. The warhead is no longer steering. It is falling, still at over 5,400 meters per second, still carrying 650 kilograms of dense metal. But the trajectory is now ballistic, not maneuvering. A falling rock instead of a guided penetrator. 3 minutes remain. The second SM-6, 14 seconds behind the first, receives the updated track. The Al-Qadr's warhead, tumbling with destroyed fins, has a predictable trajectory now. The SM-6's onboard seeker locks the tumbling mass at 7 miles. It does not need to chase a maneuvering target. It needs to hit a fast-moving ballistic object. The SM-6 guides itself to a direct impact. The kinetic collision at 0422 and 06 seconds scatters the Al-Qadr warhead into fragments that will take 3 minutes and 40 seconds to rain into the Persian Gulf, 16 miles northeast of the Carl Vinson. If the precision of that intercept shocks you, comment Vinson below right now. In the Carl Vinson's Combat Information Center, the Air Defense Coordinator announces splash on the Al-Qadr track at 0422 and 08 seconds. The entire engagement from the Qadr 110's launch to the Al-Qadr's destruction lasted 9 minutes and 2 seconds. The cost of the Qadr 110 decoy was $2.8 million. The SM-3 that killed it cost $28 million. The Al-Qadr cost Iran approximately $47 million in development allocation per unit produced. The 2 SM-6 interceptors that destroyed it cost $8.6 million combined. But Iran spent $49.8 million in ordnance and got nothing through. The United States spent $36.6 million in interceptors and stopped both. Someone in Tehran is going to do that math very carefully in the next 24 hours. The answer they will arrive at is that Iran spent $49.8 million and forced America to spend $36.6 million in response. On a pure cost exchange ratio, that is modestly favorable for Iran. What that calculation misses is that the United States Navy has 11 more SM-3s in the Lake Erie's vertical launch system, 24 more SM-6s between the 2 ships, and a full reload ship 17 miles to the southeast. Iran has no more Al-Qadrs in the southern launch corridor. The cost game looks different when you account for inventory. 18 minutes after the Al-Qadr fragments hit the water, on two FA-18E Super Hornets launched from the Carl Vinson's catapults 1 and 2. They carry 8 joint direct attack munitions each, GPS-guided bombs that cost $28,000 per unit. Their targets are both launch sites northeast of Shiraz. The coordinates were captured by overhead sensors at the moment of launch. The tunnel mouth where the Al-Qadr originated is now a confirmed GPS coordinate in 2 fire control computers. The Super Hornets cover the distance at military power in under 7 minutes. 8 500-pound bombs hit the Al-Qadr tunnel site in a pattern covering 60 meters in under 4 seconds. The hardened tunnel entrance takes 3 direct hits. The blast does not penetrate the full tunnel depth. It does not need to. The entrance is collapsed. The equipment inside the tunnel is unreachable by the crew that operated it. Whatever Iran stored further inside is inaccessible until they spend 6 weeks clearing debris with engineering equipment they will have to bring under satellite observation. The Qadr 110 site receives the remaining 8 bombs. The transporter erector launcher, blackened from the launch blast, takes 2 direct hits and is destroyed. The launch support vehicles, 3 of them visible in the satellite imagery taken at launch -2 minutes, receive 1 bomb each. The communications trailer that coordinated timing between the 2 sites takes a direct hit and ceases to function. 35 miles south of the Carl Vinson, the destroyer USS Michael Murphy has been tracking an Iranian Yunus-class midget submarine since 0347, 26 minutes before the missile attack began. The Yunus displaces 90 tons submerged, is 25 meters long. Meyer costs approximately $12 million to build. It carries 2 533mm torpedo tubes and a crew of 14 personnel. It was positioned along the Carl Vinson's projected track, probably to observe, possibly to exploit any damage the Al-Qadr produced. The Murphy's SQQ-89 sonar suite had been holding the Yunus at a range of 9 nautical miles using its towed array passive sonar. 14 trained submariners doing their jobs in a submarine that does not know it has been tracked for the last 35 minutes. After the Al-Qadr engagement closes, the Murphy receives prosecution authorization. Her embarked MH-60R Seahawk helicopter, which has been orbiting at low altitude with its dipping sonar deployed for 31 minutes, receives the attack order. 2 Mark 54 lightweight torpedoes, $650,000 each. Anna the Yunus hears the first torpedo at approximately 850 meters and goes to emergency dive. The Persian Gulf at that position is 68 meters deep. There is no water below the Yunus that the first torpedo cannot reach before the submarine can reach it. The Mark 54 acquires the Yunus at 350 meters and detonates within lethal radius. The second torpedo, trailing 700 meters behind, confirms the kill on a target that is already broken apart on the sonar display. The Yunus cost $12 million. The 2 torpedoes cost $1.3 million. 14 Iranian submariners who spent 2 years training to operate that platform will not return to port. Iran spent the night playing cost games in multiple dimensions and lost every one of them. Comment confirmed if you now understand exactly why Iran's cost exchange strategy failed at every layer. At 4:51, 38 minutes after the Al-Qadr's fragments hit the water, the Carl Vinson resumes flight operations. The 2 Super Hornets that were pushed back from the catapults have completed the strike on both launch sites and are recovering aboard. The flight deck crew shifts back from defensive posture to launch operations. The catapults are cycling. The next scheduled reconnaissance mission is briefed and ready. The Lake Erie is already in replenishment coordination with the ammunition ship USS Flint, 17 miles southeast. Each SM-6 reload takes approximately 40 minutes. The Lake Erie will have her full loadout restored in under 4 hours. Iran will need an estimated 18 to 24 months to produce and deploy another Al-Qadr to the southern launch corridor, assuming the Shiraz facility resumes operations after losing its primary access tunnel. The total engagement lasted 9 minutes and 2 seconds from the Qadr 110 launch to the Al-Qadr intercept. The cost accounting reads as follows. Iran committed a $2.8 million decoy missile, a $47 million Al-Qadr maneuvering re-entry vehicle, a $12 million submarine and its 14-man crew, 2 launch sites, 2 mobile launchers, and 4 years of operational planning to this operation. The United States spent $28 million on an SM-3, $8.6 million on 2 SM-6, $224,000 in guided bombs, and $1.3 million in torpedoes. Total American expenditure, $38.124 million to defend a carrier strike group whose combined replacement value exceeds $35 billion. The number Tehran is writing on their whiteboard tonight is not the exchange ratio between missiles fired and missiles intercepted. It is the 18-month timeline to reconstitute what they lost this morning in an operation that produced zero damage to the American carrier and zero change in American operational posture in the Persian Gulf. The Carl Vinson is still there. The Lake Erie is reloading. The Murphy is reloading. The Super Hornets are refueling for their next mission. The only things that are not still there are the Al-Qadr, the Qadr 110, the Eunice, the tunnel entrance, and the 14 submariners who will never complete another deployment. Iran's plan was sophisticated. The decoy and strike sequencing showed genuine operational creativity. The Al-Qadr's maneuvering re-entry vehicle was a real engineering achievement. Built by people who understood American missile defense architecture deeply enough to engineer a warhead specifically optimized to defeat it. The Eunice positioning demonstrated operational patience that most military planners would respect. Every piece of the plan reflected serious military thinking, and every piece failed, not because American technology was overwhelming, but because the defensive network that met it was operating with data fusion, radar resolution, and intercept geometry that Iran's engineers had not fully accounted for when they finalized the Al-Qadr's maneuver algorithms 2 years ago. The 9 meters of clearance on the first SM-6 intercept is the number that tells you everything. 9 meters between Iran's best missile technology and the Carl Vinson's flight deck, 9 meters at 5,400 meters per second. Iran built a sword sharp enough to cut through any single shield. The Americans were not holding a single shield. 2 ships, 2 radar systems, 12 data updates per second, and a cooperative engagement network that produced a track quality the Iranian engineers had not modeled when they designed the maneuver profile. The margin was real. The Iranian engineers who built the Al-Qadr are genuinely talented. They were 9 meters short of proving it. The USS Carl Vinson does not leave the Persian Gulf. She continues her patrol. She is visible, operating, present. The signal is not subtle. America does not reposition away from a threat that failed. It stays. And somewhere northeast of Shiraz, in a tunnel with a collapsed entrance and equipment that cannot be reached until the debris is cleared. Now, whoever is responsible for planning Iran's next move is calculating whether there is a version of this operation that produces a different result than 9 meters. That calculation is going to take a while. And while it proceeds, the Carl Vinson's catapults keep cycling. The 9 minutes cost Iran its best maneuvering re-entry missile, its most patient submarine crew, and whatever confidence remained in the idea that cost-exchange ratios could break the American carrier model. The 9 minutes cost America $38.1 million and 1 interrupted reconnaissance mission. The Vinson was never in serious danger. The Al-Qadr was 9 meters away from changing that sentence. 9 meters is the margin that defines what happens next in the Persian Gulf. Drop a comment telling me whether you think Iran comes back from losing their best weapon in 9 minutes with nothing to show for it. And if you want to see exactly how America's defensive network processes threats like the Al-Qadr from detection to destruction, subscribe right now. Hit like so this breakdown reaches people who think missile defense is theoretical. Leave your answer in the comments. And subscribe, because this channel shows you how 9 minutes can decide who wins before either side ever knows the fight began.